Hello again, welcome back to the Telltale channel. Today we have a special bonanza of 3 classic Disney stories for you to enjoy. To start with, we have Robin Hood, followed by Peter Pan, and finally, Pinocchio. Be sure to pay close attention to the stories and watch them all the way to the end for the fun quizzes and fun facts. Please remember you can help the channel grow by just clicking the subscribe button. It's 100% free. Here's a story of the most famous hero who ever lived, Robin Hood. He lived in Sherwood Forest, just outside Nottingham town, with his big friend Little John and his outlaw band of merry men. Yes, Robin Hood was an outlaw. You see, while good King Richard was off defending England, Richard's brother, the silly and wicked Prince John, took over the throne. Prince John was just as greedy as he was silly. The more taxes and gold he collected, the more he wanted. He sent his sheriff to get every coin in Nottingham. Robin and his band of merry men fled to the forest and became outlaws. They outsmarted Prince John at every turn. They stole the gold from the rich and gave it right back to the poor. And Robin was the boldest, craftiest one of them all. Meanwhile in the castle, the kind and beautiful Maid Marian sat wistfully at her window. She and Robin Hood were secretly in love. She wished they could marry, but then she said, "He's probably forgotten all about me." And deep in Sherwood Forest, Robin Hood was thinking of his lady love. "I love her," he told Little John, "but it just wouldn't work. She's a high-born lady of quality." One day a grand event took place, the tournament of the Golden Arrow to judge the best archer in the kingdom. Archers from all over England began to arrive in Nottingham. A crowd gathered to eat, play games, and watch the grand Golden Arrow contest. As for the prize, it was to be a kiss from the lovely Maid Marian. "This will be my greatest achievement," proclaimed Robin. The fanfares sounded and the drums rolled to announce the start of the contest. The archers marched past Prince John. Thought Maid Marian, "I think that stork looks like..." The stork winked at Maid Marian. Of course, the stork was the best of all the archers. Even when the villainous sheriff tried to mess up the stork's aim, whack, he hit a perfect bullseye every time. Prince John smiled slyly. The best marksman in the kingdom could only be. Prince John ripped at Robin's disguise with his sword. He knew he must be Robin Hood, no other archer could be that good. "Seize him," Prince John ordered his guards. But Robin Hood had good friends. They battled the guards and saved Robin Hood from Prince John. "Long live King Richard," shouted Robin as he scooped up Maid Marian and disappeared into the forest. While Alan-a-Dale sang of life, laughter, and love, Robin Hood and Maid Marian joined the merry men, dancing long into the night. Back at the castle, Prince John snarled, "Double the taxes, triple the taxes." Before long, Robin Hood's friends had been thrown into prison. How could Robin Hood get past the guards? By disguising himself as a guard, of course, and stealing the keys. While Little John set everyone free, Robin slipped into Prince John's room where the prince lay sleeping, surrounded by the royal treasure. Robin rigged up a rope and pulley to lower the sacks of gold out the window to the merry men who were waiting below. Robin Hood had just begun his escape, when Prince John woke up. "They're getting away with my gold," sobbed Prince John. "Guards, to the jail." "Ouch!" exclaimed Robin as the castle archers shot arrow after arrow his way. Robin's friends fled from the castle while the sheriff set the tower on fire. But where was Robin? Would he escape? Yes, with flames licking at his heels, Robin leaped from the castle wall and escaped into the forest. Prince John had lost again. A few days later, good King Richard returned to his castle. All the land was filled with joy. But who was most joyful? Why, Robin Hood and Maid Marian, of course. The end. Fun fact. A craftsman who makes arrows is a fletcher, and one that makes arrowheads is an arrowsmith. Were you paying close attention to the story? Try the fun quiz. Who took the throne whilst King Richard was away defending England? The answer is Prince John. What did Robin Hood disguise himself as when he entered the Golden Arrow tournament? The answer is a stork. What did Robin Hood disguise himself as when he helped free his friends from jail? The answer is a guard. Fun fact. Robin Hood's home Sherwood Forest was huge. It was 100,000 acres, extending from Nottingham to the River Meden. In those days, a forest was an administrative area owned by the king where special laws applied. It was his hunting preserve and not necessarily an area of woodland as we use the term today. There would be fields, meadows, commons, villages, etc. in a forest. Extra fun fact. In some medieval dialects, hood and wood are pronounced the same. And robber, pronounced in a French accent, could be robber. So Robin Hood might simply be the robber of the woods. Stay tuned for the next story. There once was a house in London where the Darling family lived. There were Mr. and Mrs. Darling and their 3 children, Wendy, John, and Michael. Watching over the children was Nana the nursemaid, who also happened to be a dog. This was the home that Peter Pan often visited. He chose this house for one very special reason: there were people there who believed in him. Wendy would tell stories of Peter Pan and his adventures in a magical place called Neverland. Peter loved to sit in the shadows and listen. One night, while the Darling children were sleeping, Peter Pan and his fairy friend Tinker Bell slipped into the nursery. Peter had left his shadow behind the last time he visited. He'd come back to find it. Suddenly Wendy woke up. "Peter Pan," she cried, "I knew you'd come back." She had been keeping his shadow safe. Carefully she sewed Peter's shadow back onto his feet. Wendy explained to Peter that tonight was her last night in the nursery. "I have to grow up tomorrow," she said. "I won't have it," Peter cried. "Come on, we're going to Neverland. You will never grow up there." Wendy woke John and Michael so that they could come too. "But Peter," said Wendy, "how do we get there?" "Fly, of course," answered Peter. He sprinkled the children with Tinker Bell's pixie dust and told them to think happy thoughts. Soon they were flying out of the window. Peter, Tink and the children soared through the skies and finally spotted Neverland down below. "There's a pirate ship," cried Michael. The captain of the pirate ship was Peter's greatest enemy, Captain Hook. "Blast that Peter Pan," said Hook as he studied a map of Neverland. "If I could only find his hideout, I'd trap him." Captain Hook got his name because he had a hook where his hand should have been. A crocodile had bitten it off long ago, and was still after the rest of him. Luckily for Hook, there was an alarm clock in the crocodile's belly that went tick-tock, tick-tock, so Hook could hear him coming. Meanwhile, Peter Pan had taken Wendy to see the Mermaid Lagoon, but John and Michael had no interest in mermaids. They wanted an adventure with Peter's friends, the Lost Boys. "John, you be the leader," cried the Lost Boys. Then, lining up behind him, they marched off into the forest. As they marched along, the Lost Boys and John made a plan. They would be very clever and capture the Indians. The plan might have worked too, if the Indians hadn't caught them first. Michael and John were frightened until the Lost Boys explained that it was just a game. The Indians always let them go. But this time the chief wouldn't set them free. He thought that they had kidnapped his daughter Tiger Lily. Nearby, Peter was showing Wendy the mermaid lagoon. Suddenly he spotted Hook and Smee rowing by in a small boat. Tied up in the back was Tiger Lily. "It looks like they're headed for Skull Rock," Peter said. "Let's see what they are up to." Sure enough, Hook was holding Tiger Lily prisoner. He had tied her to a rock in the sea and was asking her about Peter Pan's hideout. Hook thought she could tell him where it was. Peter set off to rescue Tiger Lily before the tide came in. Peter Pan drew his sword and fought Captain Hook back and forth. Wendy could barely watch. "I've got you this time, Pan," cried Captain Hook, forcing Peter near to the edge of a cliff. But Peter danced out of the way into thin air. Suddenly, Captain Hook tumbled off the cliff. Smee picked him up in the rowboat and the crocodile started to chase them. While they rowed away, Peter rescued Tiger Lily. The Indian chief was so pleased to get his daughter back that he gave Peter a headdress and proclaimed him Chief Little Flying Eagle. But not everyone joined in the celebrations. Back on board his pirate ship, Captain Hook was hatching an evil plot to get rid of Peter Pan. Hook had lured jealous Tinker Bell into his lair and promised that he would get rid of Wendy if she would tell him where Peter's hideout was. But as soon as Tink told him, he locked her in a glass lantern. Meanwhile, at Peter's hideout, Wendy knew that she and her brothers must go home soon. She sang about the wonders of a real mother until even the Lost Boys wanted to go to London. Only Peter wanted to stay. One by one, the Lost Boys, Wendy, John, and Michael left the hideout, only to walk right into the arms of waiting pirates. Captain Hook and his pirate gang led the prisoners away and tied them to the mast of his ship. "I have left a little present for Peter," Captain Hook told Smee. "It is due to blast off at 6 o'clock. From her glass cage, Tinker Bell overheard Hook's plan. She was furious. She knocked over the lantern and with a crack, she was free. Tinker Bell reached Peter's hideout just in time. He was about to open the package. She tried to pull the package away. There was no time to explain. But it was too late. The box began to smoke. Suddenly, kaboom! The explosion was so huge that it rocked Hook's ship. Captain Hook smiled. "Join me, or walk the plank," Hook shouted. "Join you, never," cried Wendy. She walked to the end of the plank and jumped, but there was no splash. Peter Pan had flown to save Wendy. He set her down safely, then flew up onto the rigging. Hook scrambled up after him and drew his sword. As Peter and Hook clashed swords, Wendy, Michael, John, and the Lost Boys battled it out with the other pirates. Suddenly Captain Hook lost his balance. He fell overboard and into the water, where a familiar crocodile was waiting. "Hooray for Captain Pan!" cried all the children. "All right, you swabs," said Peter, "we are casting off for London." "Michael, John, we are going home," smiled Wendy. "Hoist the anchor," cried Peter. "Tink, let's have some of your pixie dust." Tinker Bell flew around the ship, sprinkling her magical dust as she went. Then, up went the ship, and as it rose, it began to glow like gold. Back in London, Mrs. Darling found Wendy asleep by the window. "Oh, Mother, we're back," cried Wendy. She told her parents all about their wonderful adventure in Neverland. "I'm going to bed," announced Mr. Darling, but as he turned to leave, he noticed passing in front of the moon a ship made of clouds. "You know," said Mr. Darling, "I have the strangest feeling I've seen that ship before. A long, long time ago, when I was very young." And indeed he had. The end. Fun fact: crocodiles can't chew food. A crocodile's jaws can't move sideways, meaning these reptiles can't grind food down in a traditional chewing motion. Most of them tear off chunks from their prey and then swallow them whole. It isn't difficult for them, since crocodiles have the strongest bite in the animal world. Were you paying close attention to the story? Try the fun quiz. What was Captain Hook's first mate called? The answer is Smee. What did the Indian chief give Peter Pan for rescuing his daughter? The answer is a headdress. Where did Wendy, John, and Michael live? The answer is London. Fun fact: in many Native American Indian tribes, when members wear the headdress, it is believed to bring the warrior both wisdom and powers. Stay tuned for the next story. Late one night, a traveling cricket called Jiminy came to a little village. He had walked many miles that day, and he was very tired. In front of him, the brightly lit window of a little house looked warm and inviting. Jiminy jumped as high as he could and landed plop, right on the windowsill. The window was open at the bottom, and he crept in. Inside, Jiminy saw Geppetto the toymaker putting the finishing touches to a wooden puppet. "There," said Geppetto, putting down his paintbrush. "It took me a long time to make you, but you're perfect now. I think I'll call you Pinocchio." Geppetto sat down and gazed at the puppet. "Oh Pinocchio," he sighed. "I would give anything for a son of my own. How I wish you were a real boy." And with these words, he fell fast asleep. Suddenly a bright light filled the room, and a beautiful lady appeared. "I am the Blue Fairy," she whispered to Jiminy. "I will make Geppetto's wish come true." She touched Pinocchio with her wand and said, "Awake, Pinocchio. The gift of life is yours." Pinocchio's head moved up and down. Then his arms moved, and then his legs. He was alive. The Blue Fairy told Pinocchio that if he wanted to be a real boy, he must first be brave, honest, and true. Then she turned to Jiminy Cricket. "You will have to be Pinocchio's conscience, Jiminy, and teach him right from wrong." Jiminy felt proud to have such an important job. "You can depend on me," he said. Next day, when Geppetto woke up, Pinocchio was waiting for him. "Good morning, Papa," he said, jumping down from his shelf. "Pinocchio," cried the toymaker. "You are alive, my wish has come true." Overjoyed, Geppetto picked up Pinocchio and danced round the room with him. Geppetto introduced Pinocchio to Figaro the cat and Cleo the goldfish. Then he showed him all the other toys in the workshop. After breakfast, Geppetto said, "Now that you are alive, you will have to go to school with the other children. Here are some books, off you go." Pinocchio marched off proudly, holding an apple that Geppetto had given him for the teacher. He didn't know that two nasty-looking strangers were watching him. One was called Foul Fellow the fox, and the other was Gideon the cat. "Fancy that," said Gideon, "a little boy made of wood." "A puppet without strings, you mean," said Foul Fellow. "Stromboli the puppet master would pay a lot of money for that wooden boy. Let's catch him." The crafty pair soon caught up with Pinocchio. "Off to school?" asked Gideon. "Yes, sir," said Pinocchio. "What a waste of time," said Foul Fellow. "Why not come with us and be a great actor instead?" "That does sound exciting," said Pinocchio. Jiminy Cricket ran after them. "Wait," he shouted, "Pinocchio, come back." "I'll come back when I'm rich and famous," Pinocchio told Jiminy. "Papa will be so proud of me." When Pinocchio didn't come home from school, Geppetto began to worry. That night, he went out with a lantern calling Pinocchio. "Pinocchio, where are you?" Figaro the cat went with him, meowing as loudly as he could. But there was no answer. Sadly, Geppetto went back home. "If Pinocchio isn't back by tomorrow," he told himself, "I'll set out to find him. I'll go to the ends of the earth if I have to." Stromboli had paid Foulfellow and Gideon a good price for Pinocchio. The puppet master locked Pinocchio in a cage so that he couldn't run away. Pinocchio was lonely and very frightened. The Blue Fairy came to his rescue. But she was angry. "You disobeyed your father, Pinocchio," she said. "It wasn't my fault," said Pinocchio. "Two big monsters with huge green eyes grabbed me and put me in a sack," and suddenly Pinocchio felt his nose growing longer. "That's what happens when you tell lies," said the Blue Fairy. "And the more you lie, the longer your nose will grow." "I'm sorry," said Pinocchio, ashamed. The Blue Fairy could see that he really was sorry, so she made his nose shorter again. "I'll be good from now on," Pinocchio promised the Blue Fairy. "I won't disobey Papa or tell lies again." The fairy tapped his cage with her wand and the door swung open. "You are free now, Pinocchio," she said. "But I won't always be around to help you. Don't forget to listen to your conscience." With that, she was gone. Jiminy and Pinocchio set off for home. Pinocchio was very glad to be free. He walked slower and slower, so that he could look at everything. Suddenly, as Jiminy disappeared round a corner, Foulfellow and Gideon jumped out of the shadows. "Hello, young man," they cried. "You're just in time for the coach to Pleasure Island." Foulfellow and Gideon told Pinocchio that Pleasure Island was a wonderful place where children could have anything they wanted. It sounded too good to miss. Forgetting his promise to the Blue Fairy, Pinocchio jumped onto the coach. Luckily, Jiminy Cricket saw him and managed to get on the coach too. Jiminy knew all about Pleasure Island, where children were turned into donkeys and forced to work. That mustn't happen to Pinocchio, he thought to himself. When the children got to Pleasure Island, they were offered cigars and cigarettes. "This is fun," thought Pinocchio. Pinocchio watched another boy smoke a cigar. All at once he shouted, "You are growing donkey ears, and you've got a donkey tail too." Then Pinocchio felt something happening to his own ears, and he had grown a tail as well. "Help!" he cried. Jiminy Cricket was right behind him. "Come on, Pinocchio," he said, "we've got to jump into the sea, it's the only way to escape." The two friends swam and swam until the waves washed them up onto a desert island. "Look," said Jiminy. "There's a bottle with a message in it." The message said, "Dear Pinocchio, I tried to go to Pleasure Island to look for you, but a whale has swallowed my boat. Goodbye, my son, from your loving Papa Geppetto." "We must save him," cried Pinocchio. Inside the whale's huge belly, Geppetto's boat was still afloat. Every time the whale opened its mouth it swallowed hundreds of fish, so Geppetto decided to try to catch some. As he sat waiting for a nibble on his line, he heard a faint cry in the water. What was that, he wondered. It was Pinocchio. "I've come to save you, Papa," he cried. "We must think of a way to get out of here," Geppetto told his son. "Let's light a fire," said Pinocchio. "The smoke will tickle the whale's nose, and he'll sneeze us out." They set to work, and soon thick black smoke was spreading through the whale's belly. As the smoke reached his nose, the whale drew in his breath and sneezed. It was such a huge sneeze that it blew Geppetto and Pinocchio far, far over the sea. In no time at all, they were washed up on a beach. But something was wrong. Pinocchio was floating face down in the water, and he wasn't moving. Poor Pinocchio was dead. Sadly, Geppetto and Jiminy Cricket took Pinocchio home and laid him on the bed. Geppetto knelt by the bedside and wept as if his heart would break. All at once a blue light filled the room. From above the bed a voice said softly, "Awake, Pinocchio. Now you can become a real little boy." It was the Blue Fairy. Slowly Pinocchio sat up and blinked. Geppetto jumped back in amazement. "Am I dreaming?" he gasped. "It's not a dream, Papa," said Pinocchio. "I'm a real boy now." Jiminy Cricket smiled to himself. "My job is finished now," he thought. Time to start traveling again. He knew that Pinocchio and Geppetto would live happily for the rest of their lives. The end. Fun fact. Marionettes are puppets that are controlled from above by strings or wires. The controller pulls on the strings vertically using a horizontal control bar. Were you paying close attention to the story? Try the fun quiz. Where did Pinocchio find Geppetto's message? The answer is in a bottle. What happened when Pinocchio lied? The answer is his nose grew. Where were Geppetto and his boat trapped? The answer is inside a whale. Fun fact. Blue whales can grow to over 33 meters, around 100 feet, in length, which is over twice as long as a T-Rex dinosaur and makes them the largest animal species on Earth. The calf of a blue whale is around 7 meters in length, around the same as an adult African elephant. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Remember to like and subscribe for free to the Telltale channel and click the notification bell for more stories, quizzes, and fun facts.